lady and the gentleman, you done notice that there are 2 sessions that have been scheduled, right? So we're going to do 2 things. So
Yes.
what I want to ask is that we don't really have to do like take a. So I can just continue. It's not a lot of contents. So would you like me to continue, or you want? So maybe we can have a 5-minute break and continue. But do you want me to just continue, or you want to go as what is scheduled right now?
Doctor, this I will be, if we are continuing, it's fine because I will be joining the second session on through my mobile because I need to go to pick my son from
So
school. But that's okay. Whatever break, if you want to have a break, we can have a short break and continue.
no,
And
what
or
I'm
we
trying
can
to
go ahead.
what I'm proposing is that the first session is enough to cover both contents. Like I'm covering 2 lesson, session 1 and session 2 together. Within the first session, I can cover both. It's not going to be difficult.
Oh wow, then it's fine.
Yeah, so that's what I was asking. Can we do that, or you want to do both?
Anything's fine with me. I've cleared the day.
Yeah. Okay, Gayan, you?
I'm fine too.
Okay. If it is overwhelming, let me know. We can actually stop, take a break, and start, right? Because I don't want to waste your guys' time as well. All of Saturday you will be busy, right? So yeah.
How is the climate over there in Aussie?
Today it's quite good. Last few days has been horrible. We were like reaching 40 to 39, 40. It was very difficult, but now today was a bit better day.
Okay, that's nice.
It's we will next month, so in March we almost enter our autumn, right? So then weather will change.
Okay, so we are in the last couple of months of winter over here. So most probably by April, summer will kick in.
Yeah. So you will reach about like 40, 42 sometimes, right?
Yeah, there are times where we reach 50 and above, but it doesn't get reported officially.
Okay. Here the risk is that once the temperature rises, that you get a lot of warnings because Australia is fire prone, right? So because there's vegetation, there's always a fire happening somewhere, right? So like here it's all get reported and warned early on. There are no open fires. In fact, I have never seen a matchbox since I left Sri Lanka. It's a surprise.
Yeah.
We are not allowed to have open fires here, right? Even in the streets, highly restricted.
Yeah, we are in the last few, and we are enjoying the last couple of months with barbecues outside. And now Ramadan is supposed to start on 27th of February for 1 month. So after that, summer will kick in.
Yeah, I've been in Dubai, so I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Shall we start, Jami?
Yes, sir, we can start. Yeah. Pradeep also joined. Yes, we can start.
Okay, so let me share my screen. That's my. I'm unable to share my screen. I see. Can all of you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Right. Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Dhushy. Just to let you know that I am actually based out of Melbourne in Australia. I've been working with Next, for a long time. In fact, I'm one of the designers of this MSc, so I understand intimately what this course entails. So what I'm going to do is that you are now at this is your last module, right? So this is, you have basically all this time, you are now semester 1 you are covered, semester 2 you have covered, now you are at the last semester. So there are 2 things that are going to happen here. First is that this module is going to prepare you for your final work-based project. That's the whole intention. So I'll be taking you through some of the stuff that you need to think through when you're trying to do this work. I will be refreshing your memory. So in fact, today I'll be starting with discussing again about the 5-stage transformation model. And then we move on to how to set goal setting during digital transformations. We'll talk about those two today. You have like there are two assessments. One is a group presentation and one is an individual report. The group presentation is about, you have the details. I'm sure next week I've shared all the details, but we can talk about it towards maybe next week. I'll give you more details, or we can actually have a much better conversation about what your assignment 1, the group presentation is, and also give you some insight into your coursework. The group presentation is about, you select an organization and actually propose a digital transformation strategy for them with justification. So it's a group presentation. I think since there are only 5, all of you can get together and do that. The second one is about you need to prepare a report. So the second one is actually a proposition for a digital transformation project. So you could actually make this your initial work that you can expand in your final thesis, right? So say you write, so this will be a proposal. So you write this as if that this can be expanded into your final coursework project, right? So you can take that approach, but it's up to you. You don't have to do it, but I would advise that you take that path, so then you already have the material in your hand to expand, right? So that's what I advise, because I have seen students struggle when you do something else here and then go with something else in the final project, right? So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to cover 2 sessions in a day, right? So I'll try and do it within this 1 to 1.5 hours time. I think that time is really adequate for what we are going to, the material that we're going to cover here. This is what I did in your previous cohort as well. I mean, that was much easier, and you will also save time. Please stop me and ask if you don't understand anything, or if you have any questions, just raise your hand and ask me. I'll kind of recap or explain what I was trying to tell you, right? So what I'm going to do now in the first session is that to kind of refresh your memory about the 5-stage transformation model, because this is the basis for this whole program. So you need to kind of refresh what's going on. You would have gone through this with someone else earlier, but I'm going to take you through this once more again from my perspective, right? So this is the 5-stage transformation model. This is proposed by Tony Saldana in his book, Why Do Digital Transformation Fail? It's like really solid model that talks about different stages an organization has to go through to really become a fully digitally transformed organization, where we call that organization has a living DNA. Digital is their living DNA, meaning that they are very agile. They change themselves. So if you want to think about an organization that has a living DNA as digital, think of companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft. Look at companies like Apple. Those are companies who really have the digital DNA with them, and I'll also explain. I'll tell you why that is critical here, right? So this is the 5-stage model, and I'm going to take you through each stage so that you can map the organization that you're studying to these 5 stages when you're actually doing your research and your proposal, right? So stage 1. So there are 2 ways. So there are basically 2 ways that an organization can actually, I mean, not 2 ways, right? There are 2 types of organization. One is the traditional organization, and there are organizations that are digitally native. For instance, if you look at a company like Uber, is actually kind of digitally native, right? They were born digital. Or you can call them born digital. Say, if you look at Lazada, or if you look at Timu, all those companies actually are born digital organizations. They were actually born within the digital world, and they are born digital. So the way they transform themselves into a organization that has digital in their DNA, and a traditional organization it needs 2 different ways. A traditional organization might want to choose a path of evolution or path of continuous improvement and become fully digital, or they could actually leapfrog to become digital, right? So there are 2 ways that they can do it. for the born digital organizations, they only have one step away, right? So they are fully digital already, but they are one step away from becoming a organization that has digital in their DNA. I mean, what really this means is that you become very agile and adapt to technological changes immediately, right? That's what the DNA means. So let's look at what organizations do in stage one, and then what they don't do, right? So stage one in the digital transformation is basically it's called the foundation stage, where a company or an organization is adopting the basic digitization process of the organization, right? Here we are talking about automating all your processes, right? And that's the digital foundation that you're laying. So we are talking here about companies implementing your ERP systems or a CRM system or whatever the tools that are necessary for digitization of the organization, right? And I'm sure in your previous lecturers would have taught you the difference between digitalization, and digital transformation. Here we are talking about digitization, right? So this is what happened, or this is what actually happened for most of the companies during the late 80s and the early 90s, 2000. This is the foundation where you actually have a platform, a digital platform for you to run your business, right? But what you are not doing here is that you're not transforming your company. You are basically digitizing your company. Now, if you're an organization who already has a platform, right? Now, say an organization that has adopted a platform, let's say when they were in the early 2000s, it's time for them to revamp and relook at that platform now, right? Because some of the functionalities or some of the demands by the customers right now will not be able to the systems that they have right now may not be able to cater to, right? So for example, let's say you're running a legacy system, right? A legacy ERP system. And now suddenly if you want your customers who want to buy things online, you won't be able to bolt that or open up that platform for online ordering. That means you need to upgrade your systems, right? So that's what you're doing at this moment, right? So for example, let me give you an example in Australia. Toyota Australia is going through a change. They actually are going to be re-looking at what their business is, what their business model is. The first step they are taking is that they are re-implementing an ERP system from scratch, because they very clearly understand the platform they have right now is not going to help them to transform themselves digitally. So they are in the process of scrapping what they have and they're re-implementing a new ERP system, right? So that's the idea here. And at this moment, what you should be doing is that you really have to have a proper committed ownership and the right strategy, right? So the right strategy, you need to understand why are you doing this? You are basically trying to digitally transform yourself. So the purpose of that is digital transformation. The ultimate goal is digital transformation of the organization, not just automating a financial system, right? So that vision needs to be there. Now, what could go wrong here in this kind of implementation is that people get lost, right? So because some of these implementation takes say 6 months or 1 year, the changeover, people just get lost that they implement a system for the function, not for the ultimate vision, right? So that's something that you need to look at avoiding, right? So that's the mistake that would happen. And not to do that is have to have committed leadership and then the right vision the team has to have the right vision of why they are implementing the foundation level systems, right? Once you do this, you move to stage 2, right? Now let's assume, just gentlemen, 1 second. Now let's assume that the foundation level systems are in place, right? Once the foundation level systems are in place, what will happen is that there are different departments or different units or different SBUs in this organization will start to experiment with what digital can bring them. Now, for example, let's say you have a particular, you have an organization, and in that organization, the sales manager or the marketing manager now suddenly thinks, okay, if I implement digital marketing or if I open up online web store and try to sell my product or service through that, I can get more revenue. So what is happening here is that there will be leaders in the organization who, once you have the base platform, will try to experiment with new digital technologies and experiment with their business models, right? So that will happen in a siloed manner. Now, in my experience, which I have been working in this industry for like now 5-10 years, I have plenty of examples where a particular leader, a business leader, who really believed that this organization can change by implementing certain changes or implementing certain digital technologies. For, let's say, in my experience, a classic example, I worked with a finance company where there was a business leader who was adamant that they can automate the collection process, or they can automate how the lending happens, how different documents are signed. He or she will kind of innovate in the business model and the technology, right? Now, generally, the organization has to let this happen, right? So that's the main part of this. The leader, the senior leadership must understand that people have to experiment and find out new things, right? Now, what could go wrong here is that you underpower the change agents. So underpower these SBUs or the leaders who are trying to make this change. You kind of kill them at the beginning, right? So it's called the organizational immune system attacking the new ideas, right? So you need to give them air cover and protect them and nurture them, right? So you kind of empower them to experiment, right? That's the stage 2. So there will be multiple experimentation going in multiple units in the organization, but then none of them are synchronized. But at least the top leadership has to have this vision that ultimately some of these experiments that they're doing needs to get adopted into the large organization, right? So that's stage 2, right? Siloed. So people experiment in their own silos. After this stage, what happens is that now you have experimented and you have seen results, right? So now the beauty of this 5-stage model is that this is really how things change. This is very practical. All the other models, this one pragmatically explains how organizations are changing, right? Now, what happens is that now when the senior leadership actually sees the benefits of this experimentation, they have the realization now, okay, now let's adopt the changes that are happening in this particular unit, which is very beneficial across the organization, right? So they have that need that, okay, some of the lessons that are learned, some of the technologies that are used, or get adopted across the organization. Now, this happens this happens in a very slow manner. So the example that I would give you is that I worked with an NBFI who was going through this change. This started in 2019. It took 3 years, 2021, for the senior management or the director level people to understand that the experiment that they were doing was benefiting the whole organization. And now they were trying to push at that time, every other department has to adopt this. Right, so at least some of these changes that's happening in one unit that started. So that's the partial synchronization. So what happens is you are trying to take these learnings from this particular unit that you experimenting, and you are passing it across the organization slowly. But this doesn't happen in a fast-paced manner, but it kind of generally seep through the organization, right? So here, what happens at this level is the senior management is now fully bought in that this is the way to go. We need to digitize and this is the way to go, right? And they understand that. Now, what could go wrong is that at this point is where the organization actually starts to change, because earlier the change happened only in one small unit. There was a change leader or the leader that took some new experiments and tried to change the organization. But at this level, the entire organization is now trying to change. So meaning at this point, the organization must have a clear change management strategy in place, right? That should involve how to reskill people, how processes need to change, how to re-engage with their customers. All those change aspects must be in place. If you don't have that, things will start failing, right? Now, now another thing that could go wrong here is that, so one of the things that can go wrong here is that when change management happens, or when you're actually kind of adopting these changes into the whole organization, you need to have sufficient enough of projects and experimentations that are running. Some will fail and some will be successful. So you need to have that. This is in terms of strategy sufficiency. You need to have that multiple projects running. So these are not like large. You should never try to change the whole organization in one go. What you are doing is that you are running small projects that you are implementing change all over, right? And that's what you're doing here right now. So you have to have this idea of strategy sufficiency, that means having multiple projects running with the idea of experimenting things. And that's the partially synchronized. So once you do the stage 3, you move on to stage 4. And at this point, basically the organization has achieved, right? The organization is now fully digital, right? Meaning the organization has very successfully transformed themselves into a digital arena or digital platform for the business that they are doing right now, right? On the business. So if you are a finance, if you are, let's say, NBFI and giving loans, you have converted all your lending and recovery process digitally, right? So that's what you are doing as called it fully synchronized. And the entire organization is now working with the same goal. That is, we are working on a digital platform. Now, the thing is that, so at this point, you are actually talking about organization achieving new skill and, you know, adapting to current technology, because the entire technology landscape outside of the organization rapidly changes, right? And you need to keep adapting to that. Now, the challenge here is that the organization is only a one technology or a business model change away from disruption, right? Now, the example I can bring and explain here is that, let's look at a company like Microsoft, Apple. Let's look at these two companies, Microsoft and Apple, right? When when OpenAI came up with ChatGPT, that is the generative AI revolution happened 2 years ago, right? Microsoft and Apple and Google were not ready for that. They were not ready, right? But look at the way they have adapted themselves, right? What Microsoft did, they went and invested into OpenAI and they adapted the entire generative AI technology into their platform, right? So that's what it's called Copilot, right? Apple had no way of responding, right? And Apple took another year to respond. And now what they have done is they have actually partnered with OpenAI, and now Apple works something called Apple Intelligence. Is basically they are adopting OpenAI's ChatGPT 4 or the ChatGPT platform for their to kind of give intelligence to their devices, right? Google took a different path. Google adopted its own technology, and then they kind of changed themselves and they changed the way the search engine works, right? If you work with Google, it's called what? Gemini, right? Now Gemini is actually integrated into the search engine. Yeah, this is what Microsoft did with OpenAI, right? Copilot. So that's the type of adoption that they were immediately able to change. Now, another company who's not ready at all, let's say Amazon, is actually not ready, right? So that's the problem. So that's the change. The single change in business model or technology could basically kill this organization. You are digital, but you are one step away from becoming a organization that has a living digitalized living DNA. And that's stage 5, where this stage you have basically an agile culture. You are able to adapt and change your business model, change your technology, change everything to stay current and alive in the environment where technology is rapidly changing. So that's your stage 5. The moment you reach stage 5, you basically have agile culture. You are able to sense risk outside and adapt yourself, and also offer new products or services based on the technological environment that exists outside, right? Or the changes, even the rapid changes that are happening. So that's stage 5, right? Now, an organization at this level is actually Microsoft, Google, and Apple. If I explain to you, what I explained to you right now is the examples that two examples I gave you is that these organizations have the digital as their living DNA, and that's why they were able to adapt to these rapid changes in the technology and environment. So yeah, did you understand that? Any questions? Yes.
Yes.
Pradeep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pradeep, yeah, you said you have a question.
No. I understood. You can go ahead, Chamanda.
Oh, okay. So this is a slide deck this slide actually basically shows you like what you are doing and what you are not doing. So at the foundation stage, you are really not transforming. You are basically digitizing, right? In siloed, you have no enterprise-wide strategy. You are experimenting at SBU level. In partially synchronized, you are not fully invested in transformation. You are not a fully digital native organization, right? And then if you are fully synchronized, then you basically have the entire platform, the entire organization or digital platform, but you are still can get disrupted by a change in the environment with technology or business model. And if you are living DNA, you really are perpetually a agile, flexible organization that can adapt to any type of change that is happening, right? If I ask you a question, all of you are Sri Lankans, right? All of you here are Sri Lankans, right?
Yeah.
Right. So where does Pick Me fit in here?
Pick Me comes still under silo.
Stage 4. Oh, they are
Really
into
believe?
digital.
Yeah.
They are into some digital transformation, but yeah, they have not reached the final stage. Maybe stage 3 or 4,
Partially
maybe.
synchronized. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in fact, all the big talk that talk about Pick Me, they are still at partially synchronized. But Uber is actually at almost fully synchronized level right now. But see, you can actually see this, right? So Uber, the new Uber app, there's no adoption of any Gen AI there, right? Have you noticed it?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the thing. So if you look at company like Meta, when I first saw Meta's Gen AI Llama in WhatsApp and other thing, I was actually surprised. But look at the way they have integrated Gen AI into WhatsApp. That's adoption. Uber is still not there, right?
Yeah. So what I see, why I raised my hands earlier was that, see, I work for let's say, a local bank here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working under the PMO department, working as a project manager here, doing some digital transformation projects. So yes, we are somewhere around 3 and 4 at the. So when you say that you have to do this project, right? What I want to ask now, I will be critically questioning or evaluating the stages of this, how my organization is progressing and where they are, and then what they need to do it to reach the last stage and how they want to remain there, right? That's how I need to do and present that final project, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I want.
Okay, cool.
Doctor, with the same sentiments of Chaminda, now I do work in a local bank here. I have seen stage 1 and stage 2 progressing, and we are supposed to move into stage 3, but all these now actually it reflects the entire thing with this told Saldana's thing and what you explained. What I want to understand is there should be a digital transformation strategy, isn't it, before even going to stage 1 of the bank?
So that's what the leadership. That's right. So that's what I first said. There has to be a overall. The leadership needs to buy into digital.
Okay, buy into digital and strategy is two different, is it? Because
you're right. So can I also explain the at stage 3? One of the reasons that companies can fail after stage 3 because of the lack of digital literacy of the leadership, right? So people can reach. So when the leaders can say, okay, we want to do digital transformation, but they don't really understand what is digital transformation. So right, they'll work with you till stage 2, but when they want to go to stage 4, from stage 3 they are unable to fathom. So they don't have the digital literacy to understand what you mean by going to stage 4, right? So you need to have committed leadership from the beginning. Ishtiaq, you're right.
Okay, understood.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. So as a department manager in one department, I would have to. I would have to ask, isn't it? What is the bank's digital transformation strategy, and Is it on a stage 2 level? And in stage 2?
Yes.
Or
Yes. So yeah. So from what I understand from what you're saying is that you are at stage 2. You are a change managing, or you are a digital leader who's trying to experiment with something, right?
Yes.
But that needs to be transmitted, or your leadership need to recognize that you are experimenting and willing to take those changes into the other parts of the organization.
Okay.
If not, your experimentation will not be, fruitful, right?
Understood. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's this, right? And if I move on, so these are some of the myths of digital transformation, right? So this is something that I have come across again and again. Even in Australia, the companies that I work, kind of consulted or worked with, I have seen this, right? So they say improving IT is actual digital transformation. It's not, right? In the case of Toyota Australia, they're lucky that they have this gentleman who's pushing forward. But if you talk to the others, they'll say no. This is we're just implementing ERP system, right? That's not true. So then digitizing operation is strategic and transformational. Actually, no, right? Because transformation is not digitizing the operation. Digital operation will bring you operational efficiencies, but it's not transformation. So another interesting thing that you have to ask yourself is that, since you are Sri Lankans, I'll bring this example up. If you ask yourself, have you seen any digitally native product or service that is offered by a bank in Sri Lanka? Can you name that? Actually, the answer would be no, because what they have done is they have converted their existing services on a digital platform. That's what has happened. So all these wallets and mobile banking applications, what they have done is they are a digital version of the existing services. There's nothing innovative or digital in them. And so that's the sad part, right? And digital marketing doesn't deliver transformation, right? Not all digital transformation strategies are good strategies. There are very bad ones as well, right? The idea that any digital innovation is better than no, that's not true, right? You need to be very clear in your mind of what is happening in this environment, right? And the idea of digital mindset will come, it will never come. So in fact, my doctorate was somewhere around this. And one of the things that I really surprised me is that even though the leaders believe that everything has to be digital, right? So I'll recall an example. The COO of Hatton National Bank in 2016 was talking about banks has to be digital, right? It's 2025 today. What's the level of digitization the bank has achieved? If you question that, you will be surprised, right? And if I live in Australia, so I bank with Commonwealth Bank here. Here, the banks are so digitized, they are even closing down all the ATMs. They are pulling out ATM machines from most locations. Actually, from last year, there are almost 1,000 ATM locations that were closed. That's moving towards digitization. They are actually achieving digitization, right? So these are the types of things that you should be thinking through, right? It's not just converting your current businesses and operational processes into a digital platform. It's also about innovating and improvising on innovating on digital platforms, right? That's important. So then these are some of the reasons that why digital transformation failed, right? So talking about using of old tech, or trying to bolt on digital platforms on top of old technology or the old core platforms, employee resistance and change management, right? You need to have clear experience. You have clear goals and expectations that has to be set by the leadership. That doesn't happen, because what people do is that a leader will come and say, okay, let's adopt digital, right? Let's adopt digital. What does it actually mean, right? So are you kind of converting what's the vision? What do you want the organization to be with these current changes that are happening in the technology environment, right? And also, projects are miscommunicated. They go all over the places. So you can see some of these things, right? Lack of commitment, fear of temporary failures. That's another huge issue, right? People are unwilling to take risks, because the idea of a strategy sufficiency is that you have to have enough. The idea of digital transformation and improving is that if you look at all these major software companies, they experiment and there are many failures, right? Now, if you look at Amazon, how many failures, how many products they have given up? Look at Google. So there will be failures, right? But the point is that the success could kind of outlast and much bigger than the failures. That culture is not kind of adopted by the traditional organization. That's the huge challenge, right? Especially if you're if you're in finance, or if you're in banking and all that, failure is not acceptable. But the fact is that failure is the key to learn, right? So that mindset and that idea of the leadership accepting failure and moving on, that's a cultural change that needs to come in, right? Now you will notice that some of these organizations eventually will fail as organizations because they are unable to adapt. Right? So all of us are going through a seismic change at this moment, right? With the current technological changes and all that, traditional organizations, unless they adapt, they will not be able to succeed in the next 5 to 10 years. It's impossible. So that's something that you've got to keep in mind. So these are some of the things that you need to consider when you're digital. You have to have the right strategy and culture. Staff, you need to engage your staff and kind of reskill them, retrain them, or maybe you should let go of the old folk and bring new people in, right? There has to be innovation in your processes, right? So when you are digitizing, you don't just adapt your manual process in digitizing. How do you improve, right? And then also the right technological adoption that you bring in. Ultimately, digital is all about understanding your data, right? How do you kind of understand this is the crux of the matter. What digital brings you is that ultimately all boils down to data, right? So how can you understand your data and how can you kind of have insights of your customer, of your business, and that can help, which will help you to grow your business. So that's the ultimate thing. Digital is all about ultimately coming to data and your insights, right? And you need to have that. And if you achieve all this, or if you have this framework in place, you are moving towards digital transformation. Right? Any questions? Stop and start next one.
So this framework, is it adapted from somewhere else, or it just
Oh, this framework is by Tony Saldana, right? So this framework.
Okay. Tony Saldana's. Okay, fine. Sir.
Awful. Did you hear me? Hello?
We lost you for some time.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we
can hear you now.
Okay, so to answer you, Tony Saldana has written this book. So there was this Wharton School of the Wharton School, the first MBA, the university that started the first MBA, reviewed this book and written a nice review about this. So this is the experience of how P&G, Procter & Gamble, implemented digital transformation in the organization, right? And this is the model they followed. Right? And in the beauty is that if you read that book very carefully, you will understand. If you read the book carefully, you will understand how Tony Saldana compares digital transformation for aircraft takeoff and landing, right? Because at this moment, what digital transformation is like an aircraft taking off and landing, right? So the reason is your runway, the aircraft to take off, you need to reach a certain speed and the runway length is limited, right? If you either slow down or if you slow down and if you don't reach the right speed, you can't take off. Right? What's happening is your runway is limited. Because of the changes that are happening around you, you have no time. Your runway is time for businesses. So you need to do this immediately at the right pace. And he emphasizes that. So if you have time, I would strongly advise, or actually in your digital transformation post material, they should have covered this. I don't know whether they did, but they should have.
They did, sir. We have the book also.
Yeah, so, we have the book. Yeah. We have the book.
Right. Okay. So that's important. So understand. So that's why this model is very powerful, right? Okay. So let me go through the second one. So these are things that I generally happens. I'll share these things with you, right? One of the things that I want to emphasize now is that one of the biggest things, or one of the critical things that are happening right now because of digitization is that the fundamental assumptions that you have about your industry are changing, right? And I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to actually ask you whether what have you. So see, every industry has an assumption, right? So for example, if you look at the automobile industry, the fundamental assumptions they had for the last 100 years or 100 plus years is that everybody wants to own a car, right? Car ownership is an asset that people own and they would love to drive a car. That's the fundamental assumption. But is that true right now? That's what I'm going to take you through to show you that that's not how things are going to work anymore, right? So let's look at the vehicle industry. And the first assumption that the car industry had, or let's look at the car industry had was customer need, right? Basically, the customers want to own a vehicle, right? That's what they if you look at the entire manufacturing of how Toyota works and Ford or Nissan, they are manufacturing cars for ownership, right? But what's happening right now, right? Now, with people like Uber coming in, with car sharing, with automated, with self-driving cars going to come in, all that is changing, right? Actually, there are statistics that is showing that people living in urban cities don't want to own license. The number of people who are applying for car driving license is dropping because you really don't need it. You need to push a button, the vehicle will come to you. So why do you really want to have driving license? Why do you want to own a car? You just push a button, the car comes to you, just take a ride. So the idea is that people are moving away from the idea of ownership into mobility. And that's what this graph shows here, right? So you had this self cars that you drive, you have the personal ownership, it's an asset that you own. But Uber and all the other car sharing, ride sharing application came, and suddenly everything changed, right? People now, okay, you still have the ownership, but you are starting to share. But the moment the self-driving revolution comes in, and this is already happening in some cities in the US and all that, you just push a button, the car comes to you. Right? So you don't, why are you, so this is actually jolting the entire vehicle manufacturing industry, right? For instance, in the US, now the changes are still happening, but a few years ago, in the US, Mercedes-Benz and BMW introduced a mechanism of car subscription. That is, you pay a subscription every month. You can come and use any car you want because they couldn't compete. They couldn't basically sell their cars. So they went into the model of subscription, right? So now even that's getting disrupted, right? So that's the idea. So fundamentally, the car companies thought that people want to own cars, but actually what they want now is mobility. That's number one. Number two, the core technology, right? The core technology for cars were engines, but now it's batteries. The engines doesn't matter, right? So the companies who invested 100 plus years in improving their engines, right? What they created, so much of R&D that went into engines suddenly has no relevance, right? So that's another assumption. The core technology has now suddenly changed, right? From engine to batteries, right? Number two. Number three is that now organizations that were so successful in manufacturing, right, suddenly find themselves, that's not the core strength. The core strength is actually in information, right? So I don't know whether you have if you have got into a EV these days, Tesla or BYD or any other Chinese or any other EV, when you get in, it has nothing to do with engineering. It's all about information. So nowadays they're not called cars, they are basically mobile phones on wheels, right? It's all about information. Now this is where the problem. Now Toyota wants to talk to Apple and Microsoft, has to talk to Apple and Microsoft because that's the information company, and nobody wants to talk to them because Apple and Microsoft can manufacture their own cars if they want to, right? Because it's so simple, right? The entire ecosystem has changed. So the DNA that was has suddenly changed to something else. Now it's about information services. Right? The next one is that there were traditional competitors. Right? Earlier, the competitors, you knew who your competitors were. So you knew for Toyota, it was Ford or Peugeot or let's say Lamborghini or whoever. They knew the competition. Now suddenly you are seeing that somebody else is coming into the industry. BYD was originally a battery manufacturer, but now they are the largest EV manufacturer in the world. Xiaomi is a mobile phone manufacturer, but now they are manufacturing cars, right? So the whole game, or the entire how the industry works, how the new entrants come in, who are these competitors, are completely changing the game, right? So the most of the tech companies are now becoming competitors to the car manufacturers, and this is what Toyota is actually realizing after so long. Now the problem is they have the legacy issue, right? They have built in so much of infrastructure. Suddenly they can't change suddenly, but at least they have understood that and trying to change right now. But I'm saying that the competition or the traditional new entrants, all that is suddenly being changed right now, right? So let's keep in mind. The next one is that earlier the thing was that it's all about supply chain. Toyota actually invented the idea of just-in-time supply chain, right? And they thrived for the last 70 years, right? From 2000, no, from after the Second World War till now, they really thrived on the success of how they very well managed supply chain. Now, it's not about the supply chain; it's about ecosystem. Like nobody bothers about supply chain anymore. Where the car is going to belong, right? You can, so you don't want to own a car, then where do you want to put the car? It has to be a part of a larger ecosystem, right? For connecting, let's say, from a bus stop to a train stop to the home. That's where a car belongs. So the entire idea of managing or becoming a supply chain dominance now suddenly has become a part, suddenly has to be changed to becoming an ecosystem partner or ecosystem member. So these are the 5 key assumptions that the auto industry had, right? And look at what has happened right now. The question is, have you ever thought about what your industry's fundamental assumptions are? And have you questioned, are they changing or not? There are bankers here, right? Tell me. Istiak, you're a banker, right? And Pradeep, you're a banker. Have you ever questioned this?
We do question. The thing is, in my view, when I see the current the certain banks around the globe, like Ali Bank, DBS, and Morgan, those banks, Morgan Stanley, the banks in where we are at the moment is we question against them, but apparently it's not up to that level. That's what I said. Where we in the stages where it stands, and it's a little bit challenging. It's quite challenging to see the kind of how they look at the industry changes, because although we see it's quite vibrant over here, from the regulatory perspective onwards, it is not it is not rapidly changing, because you know how bank financial institutions will be the last people who will actually look at change.
Yeah, so that's I understand that, but even that is your weakness, right? So if you look at so I'll give you a practical example, right? So there are companies there are these online lenders, right? I give an example that I have come across. I came across so let's look at Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka, I'm going to take a Sri Lankan example. There's a company called Cashwagon, right? Cashwagon was actually lending. They were basically doing based on your personal profile, they lend money, right? Their daily portfolio was bigger than all the banks put together. So they were doing about 20 to 30 million worth of lending every day, and about similar amount of collection every day, which banks were not. For the banks, it was unthinkable, right? Of course, this is outside the regulation. That's the disruption that is happening. Now, there are companies in Australia, they specialize only on home loans. The way they evaluate and lend on a building project or you're buying home is completely disruptive compared to a bank, right? So you can see people are shifting slowly from traditional banks into these companies. because they're much more convenient, much more flexible, and faster to process. So the idea that they, yeah,
Doctor, we also have Gayan over here who is from a telco from Etisalat working for India. So as bankers, we are being informed that Etisalat is been knocking at the door of Central Bank of UAE, looking for a license.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yes.
So now with lot of digital banks, been a couple of 4 to 5 digital banks in UAE, and with Etisalat knocking at the door, the traditional banks are threatened. So that is why these digital transformation and all those things are going in, trying to go on steroids. I don't
understand.
know how
I
far
think
it will be successful.
Yeah, so they're trying to handhold you guys, block the new entrant and handhold you guys to come up to that level, right? But ultimately, the loser is the consumer. The consumer will select some from somewhere else. That's what's going to happen, right? So it's I understand the regulatory side of this, but there is also disruption happening in many ways, right? These new players entrepreneurs will find a way to do something, right? If you today I was listening to a economist podcast. There is a company in US that is bringing back supersonic flight, right? I was like shocked. It's a startup who is doing, and they did the first test run. These new entrepreneurs will find a way, basically find a way. I'm just my thought, right? So let's talk about having set the stage for questioning the fundamental assumption of your own industry. Let's look at how do you set goals for your digital transformation, right? So there are basically 5 things that you have to consider. So the first thing is that does the proposed transformation uses 2 or more of the following, right? So either we are using exponential technologies, you know what exponential technologies are, outcome-based models, or exponential ecosystem. Either are you using at least 2 of these, right? And it's the goal of, so I'll skip this and go it. So we are talking about the first goal is whether you are using either exponential technologies, outcome-based models, or exponential ecosystem. Not at least using 2 of these, then you are really setting yourself up for failure. Exponential technologies are technologies that will rapidly, so it's things like AI, robotics, and all that stuff, right? So either you reduce your cost by using them or expand your business, right? And exponential ecosystems are you plugged into an ecosystem where it will give you access to the whole world, right? And outcome-based models means that are you actually thinking of the outcome or the process? What happens is that most of the companies think of the process but not the outcome, right? So are you setting the outcome of I want to reach 10 million customers in the next 2 years? Have you looked at that? So that's this part of it, right? The first goal. The second one talks about what's the goal of your transformation? Reinvent or create incremental improvement. This is something that you need to really be careful, right? There are some large organizations who may not be able to reinvent or radically change things because of legacy. Like Toyota is a good example, right? If you look at Toyota suddenly needs to compete in the EV market. So they were trying to drag the world in the hydrogen arena, right? So if you look at Toyota as a company, Toyota invested a lot of money in hydrogen engines, right? They're called, I can't remember, there's a nice name for that. They tried with hydrogen, they tried with urea, but ultimately what has happened is that the whole world has moved on to the EV side, right? So now they need to actually either experiment with battery technology or invest money into that or build EV vehicles because they can't change the tide, right? So the whole world is moving towards EV. You can't come and say now hydrogen is better. It can be better, but we have started moving in the direction of EVs, right? So what I'm saying is that you can't sometimes reinvent things. You have to do the changes incrementally, right? Depending on the status of your organization or where it is in its life cycle, the product and all that. But some can reinvent and they can leapfrog, right? So for instance, let's say if you're a smaller company and you see something radically happen. So say you're a small company who's doing, let's say on the service sector, you're doing insurance, right? And you suddenly get Gen AI And you should be able to kind of reinvent the entire way how people can purchase an insurance policy. You can have a conversation. They can actually enable the system to have a conversation with the person and issue an insurance policy without an agent, right? So that's the type of rapid change or the incremental change that you look at. And of course, your goals should be smart, right? Specific, measurable, blah, 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 all that stuff. And you need to be able to communicate this to everybody in the organization, right? Practically speaking, not every employee can understand what you're saying, right? This is like a government having a spy agency and assassinating people, but yet they tell people something else, right? Because some things people can't understand. It's not in their mental model, or it's a way out of their frames of reference, right? So, but the idea is that at least the key people must be bought in that this has to happen, right? So that's the second one. The third goal is the goal to deliver one or more of the following. Either you need to give a new business model for transformation, new technology enabled product product adjacency, or a 10x operational efficiency. What this means is that, are you innovating in your business model? So you with the new digital technology, is there a change in your business model, right? So business model has three components. Shit, I think I'm stuck. Guys, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So business model has three components: value capture, value creation, and value delivery, right? Are you making any changes into this? So is there a business model innovation? And whether the product that is your product, or you're adopting new technology that you move your product into the closest adjacency, right? So meaning, let's say a good example is if you are giving a bank loan or a lending from a bank. Now if you're from paper to mobile is moving into the technology adjacency, right? Or now from mobile, what's next, right? That's are you doing that, or are you achieving 10x operational efficiency? So either you can use a exponential technology to reduce your cost by 10x 10 times, or increase your business by 10 times. Are you doing that? Is the technology adoption doing that for you? This is something that you need to keep in mind, right? It's something I always come up when I do a bit of consultancy here. I always tell them, if you adopt a technology, is it actually going to reduce your cost by 10x, or going to bring your business by 10x in the next 3 years? If not, then you are looking at the wrong technology, right? So that's something that's very important to keep in mind. That's the third goal. The fourth one is that is the intent of the transformation to drive a perpetual culture of transformation, right? So this is quite important. This is what we discussed earlier when a company transformed from stage 4 to 5, right? That is, the entire culture of the organization must be ready to adapt and change at any time to the changes that are happening in the environment. Because you must know by now, our technological environment is changing so rapidly. In fact, every 3 to 6 months, there is a major disruption, right? So if you look at, let's take the ChatGPT as an example. So ChatGPT launched in 2022, right? So 2023. Today, we are within the next 3 years, we are now moving into reasoning models, right? That's a major disruption. Right? This is what the DeepSeek thing is about, right? So the reasoning models are coming in. Now, there are companies who are working on a model called JEPA that is even further. That is, the models are now trying to understand the real world, right? So this is like an example of this is, right? When a cat actually sits on a chair and trying to jump on a table, it has a mental model of how to jump, right? Now, current AI models don't have that. How do you get that? So that's the type of systems people are working on right now. So that when that disruption comes in, how does your business going to manage? Can the organizational culture be able to adapt to such a rapid change? Is what is being discussed here, right? So that means you got to be prepared. You need to really prepare your cultural change to be accepting of perpetual changes, right? Or agile culture. The last one is the proposed transformation enterprise-wide based on a formal strategy and driven from the top, right? Here, the idea is that the leadership must take ownership and it has to be driven from the top. Now, for a startup, it can be from bottom up because startup is small, the organizational structure is flat. And if you have a current living DNA, like say, for example, like Google or Meta, then you can allow the bottom up approach because you are anyway flexible and changing. But if you are an organization who have been driven from top, and if the leadership is not ready, right? If leadership is not going to accept the transformation, whether it is like real ownership and drive it organization wide, then even though you may reach level 4, you cannot actually go to level 5, meaning that you will eventually fail, right? So that's the fifth goal, right? So these 5 goals are fundamental for digital transformation. These are questions that you have to ask yourself. And yes, yeah.
Doctor, when you said to be driven from the top,
Yeah.
now in which stage does design thinking come into effect here, where we collect information from the stakeholders and agents too?
That is at stage 2, Istiyar. Your design thinking and all those improvements should come at stage 2.
So it comes from the top, or is it from the stakeholders?
That is from the bottom side, right? So that's why, so the design thinking and how you improve your processes and all that are happening at the customer interaction level. But here we are talking about the leadership's vision. So leadership needs to say, okay, I will adopt this. When you go and say, can we change these things this way? The leader must say, okay, look, let's do it. And let's experiment. That is what this means.
Okay.
I don't know if that answer your question. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because the leaders can't come, the leadership cannot think in design thinking terms, right? Because they are not actually connected to the customer. So that happens at the level 2, right?
Yes,
so this is what I wanted to cover today, right? So this is what I want to do. We meet again next week. No, next week we don't meet because I'm actually traveling next week. So we meet week after, right? Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I think it's on the 22nd, isn't it?
Yeah, so next week, I'm actually flying to Sri Lanka, so I'll be traveling next Saturday, so I have to take it on 22nd. Yeah. So any questions? Please feel free to ask now.
For me, I'm reflecting whatever you said with my current organization, with related to the two models required, like experiential technology and the business model outcome. With the current strategic pillars, which is now been implemented, and how they are saying these are the two I believe they are actually looking at. And just to give you an insight information or whatever I say, a bank has been there for about 40 years, and it converted from a conventional bank to Islamic in 2002, and this is the 2024 for the first year we hit the bottom line of 1 billion dirhams.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, so that is for a bank. It's, I mean, overall comparing to others, it's not enough. But first time we hit 1 billion, and the strategy is by 2028 to hit 2 billion.
Oh, that's good.
Just imagine that 40 years and all. So while the peer banks are hitting about 2.8 to 3 billion and all, our current peer banks, which we are competitive. So this is where I feel the business model outcome is within 4 years time they want to hit the 2 billion bottom line. So and they will use the exponential technologies for this particular purpose. So that's why I was reflecting on what we are actually doing, because currently some of our staff members, they are stressed out, saying that what is happening. So many things have been implemented and checked out. They are checking out so many technologies and all. So we, like what I said, we are in the stage 2, and so this reflects of what we are actually doing. So I know where we are standing from, and it helps me to contribute.
I'll give you an example. So the 10x cost reduction, right? So there's a case study that I've come across where a Chinese, I think it was a Chinese call center which had 1,000 staff. With Gen AI, they were able to cut down the entire staff from 1,000 to like about 50. That's a 10x improvement.
Yeah, and also I'm reading out this article about this street what do you call street what is it called street something to called of I can't recall. It's related to something to do with the culture on street behaviors.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is where we see the immune system kicking in of the banks when you start to implement whatever you come across this street level bureaucracy.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was talking. I was reading it. Yeah. So I was wondering how the street level bureaucracy will come into effect when in my thesis or whatever on the final project utilizing this. So whenever you go to implement something, you come across all these guys coming in with kicking in with this with their bureaucracies on implementing some process when it comes to a compliance team or operation risk team. That bureaucracy I have seen at the moment, so it's very difficult to convince. And the bank is also transforming, where they have now looked at if you are at the age of 55 and if you are not in that transformation stage, they request you to take your early retirement.
That's in a way is a good thing because people don't keep themselves up to date, right? There's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have seen that many of the early retirements have started now itself. So it makes sense. Now it falls in track with whatever I'm learning. It falls in track because if you cannot, it's better you move out. That's what they're implementing here.
There's a lesson for all of you here, right? One of the things that you have to become lifelong learners.
Yeah, that's why we are here.
Yeah, so it's not a question of you learn it now and stop it, right? You need to continuously learn. It's very important because the technology landscape and the environment is changing so fast. If you don't learn and also unlearning, you got to also learn to unlearn, right? Because unlearning is the biggest. There's an idea called mental fitness, right? You know, there's something called mental fitness as well as being what I can't remember. Just thinking. So the idea of being a smart person or a very clever person is that you learn new things, right? You are very knowledgeable, but that's not good enough. Mental fitness is also you should be able to unlearn things to learn new things, right? That's mental fitness, right? So basically, it's like going to the gym. Your mind has to go to the gym. So there are certain things that you unload and put new things in, right? Without reinterpreting the future through past lenses, right? It's very important.
Yeah, understood.
So reflecting back on, just one comment from my end, I come from again, I was working for an international bank, moved to this local bank recently, about 1 year now. The current COO who drives the digital transformation holds an AI doctorate. So he has the full potential and he's driving this across the bank. Now, there are few initiatives they have taken. One being now RM proposals, which takes about now 48 hours to write. They're trying to reduce that to within 2 hours. You feed in all the data, whatever learning models, the previous proposals, keep it in the system, and then provide current customer balance sheets, everything, the reports, financial reports, and to get a proposal out and then the basic draft from the system itself, right? Instead of people manually drafting and then making mistakes, which doesn't have consistency, they're trying to come up with this model where it will help the entire organization. It'll reduce the manual effort, right? That is one. And there are, I don't know, Ishtiak, you must be aware this now. Today, ICCS system, right? To read certain information which are handwritten, it takes a long time for a check. This is check scanning, doctor, which I'm talking about. So we are implementing another system today, which is going to scan using AI technology and to understand the check details and then populate the basic information. Whoever earlier, which people were doing manually, is trying to be automated now through the system itself. You will have exceptions. You cannot have 100% accuracy, right? You will have some exceptions that will go into an exception queue. Whatever it is possible to read through this scanning system, they will do it. So it's trying to reduce now. They're saying about 48 man hours of this entire journey they will be reducing out of that. So it's a cost save, right, at the end of the day. So bank is working towards this digital transformation. Plus now we are moving towards the API banking. The corporate customers, we are going to offer this. These are the things that we are trying to do. We are not there yet, but yes, gradually, step by step, we will move towards that end goal.
Yeah, that's good. Actually, that's the process, right? That's how it works. In fact, let me tell you something. There's no 100%, right? Even your human judgment is not 100%. Right? It's a continuum. It's a continuum, right? You judge between 0 and 100. You are 60, 70% right. You're right, right? So AI systems also work like that.
Yeah, it's what the pain area which I'm going through is, doctor. Now I've joined the bank in 2012, and most of the credit memos I have shared, and I have also shared it with many of the relationship managers, corporate, and it's in the library. So they, for anything, they think I'm a supercomputer. They come and ask me, can I do this deferral? Can I do this? I said, guys, I know, I remember, but I'm not a supercomputer to tell you on tip of my fingers. But now, see, I was talking to the strategic team. I said, now there are some wealth management banks who have implemented this chatbot. Why don't they just type that and implement it?
No,
so
this is what AI agents can help, right,
exactly.
doctor? Right? You can read all these documents and then
but
create
they
a
have to train
library.
the cost comes into picture, the cost of the technology and the training, the AI. So it has to, and these will actually reduce a lot of. You can't expect everybody to know what is the entire credit policy in the back of your hand. So
he's right. Pradeep is right. Is the actor. So the idea of this AI, everybody talks about AI agents, but the point is, it's not the point. You got to train the organizational, take a foundation model and train it on top of your organizational data, right? That's what you got to do, right? You got to make sure. Guys, all of you, make sure that you have a right data management policy prior to going into AI. Yeah, that's fundamental, right? You need to have very clear data management policies in your organization. Right? Data governance, not management, data governance, right?
Data governance.
Yeah, it's very, very critical. People don't realize this because that's fundamental before going into AI. So the moment you have that, even though the cost could be a bit, the initial investment could be high, but imagine the savings. You can recover this cost within like 1 year, right? Easily.
Yeah, that's what they were saying in my organization, doctor. Like whatever the initial cost, within 2 years you can recover this. That's what they said. By implementing this kind of models, you can recover that, and then you do a cost benefit analysis and identify where you're benefiting also, right?
I want to add an example to this. I have a friend who implemented a system for a garment factory in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, right? Well, basically, they had a QA team of about 100 people checking the labels whether they were stitched properly. These guys implemented a image recognition system where you actually place the entire garment, the labels would be kind of put on a camera, and the system will tell you whether the label is on the right side or not, right? The company was able to reduce 50% of their QA staff. 50%, right? If they were earlier 75, now it's only like 30 odd people now. So it's practically, if you think about it, right? The amount of efficiency and all that is so vast compared to the investment.
Yeah, we have to look at the the all areas and see where we can improvise, right? That's where you are not looking at. Sometimes we overlook some areas, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We have to have,
You're
like
right.
you said, you have to unlearn and then look at these areas.